Hi everyone, I just want to give a warm welcome to Mr. Richards here, our webinar panelist, and I just want to give him an introduction. To start off, Mr. Richards provides leadership in the areas of recruitment and outreach for the MD, MD MBA, and MD MPH programs. Prior to his current post and admissions, he worked in the Keck School Curriculum Department on examination development for the MD program. His previous professional experience includes work in human resources, talent development, and organizational effectiveness. He is a passionate lifelong learner who enjoys speaking with prospective applicants and educational organization representatives about the many opportunities that the Keck School of Medicine has to offer. Mr. Richards earned his bachelor's degree in philosophy and master's degree in educational psychology from the Cal State University of Northridge. Thank you, Mr. Richards, for being here, and you could go on ahead. Oh, I think you're muted.
Thanks a lot for inviting me. I appreciate it. Sorry for the technical issues I had to overcome to join you all this afternoon. I have a PowerPoint. Is it okay if I share that? All right. Okay. Just one moment. Let me get myself situated here. Okay. Again, thanks for having me. I'll talk a little bit, give you an overview of the Keck School of Medicine's program and some of the things you might find interesting about our program, and then I'll open it up for questions. I'll also talk about some of the things that we look for in applicants, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. At the end of the presentation, I'll provide a link to a link tree that has my contact information and everything there so that you could email later if you have questions that come up a little bit later. But again, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. For those of you who don't know, the Keck School of Medicine is in Los Angeles, California. We're in downtown. We're about 10 minutes east of downtown Los Angeles, in the Boyle Heights neighborhood of Los Angeles. Our main training hospital is on our campus, and that's the Los Angeles General Medical Center. That's probably has probably one of the most diverse patient populations of any hospital in the country. Has one of the biggest trauma centers, emergency trauma units in the country. So a lot of people that come to our program want to study at the Los Angeles General Medical Center. It also has one of the biggest residency programs in the country as well. So it's just a great training hospital, great environment to train as an MD and just in general training in the health professions. So great place to train. We also have the Keck Medical Center on our campus as well, and we have affiliations with a number of different hospitals in the greater Los Angeles area, such as Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, White Memorial, the Verdugo Hills Hospital, and a few more that are in our network of training facilities. The Keck School of Medicine also has about 24 different research institutes that are affiliated with the Keck brand. So we do a lot of research. I think we ranked about 26th overall in NIH funding over the last few years. So research is a very big part of the life of the campus of the Keck School of Medicine, and I just mentioned that for those of you who are interested in making research part of your medical education at a school like a Keck School of Medicine, you have plenty of opportunities to make research as big a part of your medical education as you would like. Educationally, Keck offers a lot of different programs. We have 2 undergraduate programs, a BS in Global Health and a BS in Health Promotions and Disease Prevention. They offer 22 different master's degree programs, 10 PhD programs. There's a School of Pharmacy on our campus, a PA program, which is affiliated or a part under the Keck umbrella, but it's in Alhambra, which is about 10 minutes from our campus. And we have an occupational science and occupational therapy program located on our campus. So with those 3 things, healthcare, research, and education, we have a really big footprint in providing health care and research throughout the world, basically, but centralized right here in the greater Los Angeles area. So I represent the MD program, and we do have an MD PhD program that's carried out in affiliation with the California Institute of Technology. We also offer dual degrees in MPH and MBA programs. Those are open to our current MD students who are in the third year are eligible to apply to those two programs. Um, those two programs extend the total education time to 5 years instead of the regular 4-year MD program. The MD PhD program, the research portion of that program can last anywhere from 3 to 7 years, depending on the specialty or the topic, your research topic and your line of research. And I'll be happy to answer more detailed questions about that MD PhD program a little bit later if you have any. We also have, given all of the educational programs that we have at the Keck School of Medicine, you can imagine there's a lot of students on our campus. But our wellness program and our learning and academic support units are both dedicated to our MD student body only. MD student body, staff, and faculty only. So they have the wellness program has a curriculum that is embedded in the MD curriculum because physician resilience is a big concern in the medical field, and they address that by teaching students to take care of themselves, seek help, and take advantage of the resources that are offered through the program. The learning and academic support unit, I think one of the big myths of medical school is that you're just kind of dropped into the pool and you have to fend for yourself and get through it. But that couldn't be further from the truth. They offer every resource available that you can imagine to help students thrive in our academic environment. We have peer tutoring. Our third-year students and our second-year students are trained and paid to tutor our first and second-year students. We have one-on-one meetings with learning specialists who are both PhDs in the sciences, all kinds of academic success workshops and learning resources that are provided to students. So very, very robust academic support unit there. We also have a number of different student interest groups. We have over 80 different student interest groups. All of the medical subspecialties are represented by these groups, and they all have their own like community engagement agendas. They all have faculty mentorship. It's a great opportunity for students to, they sponsor different shadowing in different specialties. They have different medical professionals and members of different patient populations come and speak to the groups about their experience in healthcare, things like that. So great, many opportunities for students to be involved in the community and fellowship with their fellow classmates as well. They also have leisure clubs, like hiking clubs, music society, literature club. I mean, you name it, there's a student interest group for it. We also have the Office of Student Engagement and Cultural Affairs, which is a hub for a lot of our affinity groups like LMSA, SNMA, Student National Medical Association, American Medical Women's Association, and those groups are tied into our student engagement unit, and that unit coordinates all types of activities that kind of help the community, our community at large, come together and get to know one another and stay in contact with one another. And they offer all types of opportunities as well for students to be involved in the community as well. So one of the great features of our program is our organ system learning. In the first year and a half of the program is all pass-fail exams in the organ system learning. Each organ system block is about 4 to 6 weeks long, culminating in a pass-fail exam. Promotes a lot of collaboration amongst our student body. We have a health justice and systems of care component to the four-year curriculum that's embedded in the curriculum as well. Graduates of with the MD degree also graduate with a certificate in health justice and systems of care. We have plenty of student leadership opportunities. Every phase or part of our organization has student leadership, student representation in the leadership, from our admissions committee, interviewing committee, our admissions committee, curriculum committee. Every point of contact with students has student representation represented. So that's a good thing as well. We have an early immersion doctor-patient relationship skills training program. It's called Introduction to Clinical Medicine. And the way it works is by our third week of medical school, we break our students into various cohorts. And for this ICM group, they're broken into cohorts of 6 to 8 students, and they're assigned a physician faculty, and they meet twice a week. They learn how to take histories. They follow or shadow this physician in the wards. We have standardized patients come in so they can practice on history taking and diagnosing certain illnesses and things like that. So you get your feet wet right away with patient interaction through this program. We also have another system of cohorts that are the learning communities, and those are groups of 24 students, and that's kind of like the home base where and it's assigned 2 professors, 2 faculty physician, and they kind of piggyback on the curriculum lectures throughout your first 2 year or year and a half of the didactic portion of the medical school. And they're open, the learning communities are open 24/7, coded access. All of the lecture materials and everything are housed online, so they're always available. And not all of the classes are mandatory, so you have a lot of freedom in the way that you set up your schedule, how much time you spend on campus. For those of you who are interested in research, I mentioned the number of research institutes that are affiliated with Keck, but we have a Dean's Research Scholarship Program. Students that are in their 3rd year are eligible to apply to that program, and people that are granted entry into that program will receive a $25,000 stipend. They do research for they take a leave of absence for a year, and they do research for 9 months, and then they have 3 months to write their paper and have their paper published. So that's a great program for folks that want to incorporate research into their medical education. There's all manner of scholarship opportunities through our donor network. Our class size is 120, and we offer typically about 30 to 35 1- and 2-year tuition scholarships to members of our incoming class. And once the class matriculates, you have opportunities throughout your 4 years of medical school to apply for scholarships through our donor network and other sources that the financial aid office sources throughout your time at Keck. The goal is to help you kind of offset some of the costs, because they understand that medical school is insanely expensive, and they do whatever they can to kind of ease that burden for you all. This is a snapshot of our curriculum. It's basically our curriculum is 3 phases. There's the scientific and clinical foundations phase, where you go through the organ systems. First, you start off with like an introduction to medical sciences block for the first 3 or 4 months, and then after that, you rotate through the organ system blocks, and you do that for the first year and a half, and then this half of your second year, after the winter break, you have dedicated time to study for the USMLE Step 1 exam and to prepare for your clinical immersion in the clerkship rotations. There are 7 clinical rotations that are required. Each one is about 4 weeks. some are a little longer, 5 weeks, 6 weeks or so, and they culminate in National Board of Medical Examination exams after you complete each section of that. Then once you finish that portion, you start what we call the individuation and transformation phase of your education, where we really try to help you tune in and discover for yourself the type of medical professional you envision yourself being. We provide coaching. We provide all manner of career advising resources to help you select the right medical specialty to do your residency in and prepare for residency interviews and things like that. So that third phase is critical, and it contributes to we have a amazing success rate for our residency matches. We're at like 97% year after year in residency match rate. And here's a snapshot of the last match that we had. That says 2024. I think I grabbed a older slide and stuck it in there, but similar numbers and similar outcomes pretty much year after year. Psychiatry has gone from being like fourth or fifth on this list to being number two. Like that has, since the pandemic, that has really increased a lot. But like you see, 78% of our students matched in California, and I think 25% of that group are staying at Keck. So yeah, it's a really great residency match career advising unit that we have for our students. Here's a snapshot of our last incoming, or not our last incoming class, but we just seated a class on Monday. But this is the class of 2028. Similar numbers. Everything here is pretty much the same. Every year, it seems like we get more and more people that have been out of school for two years or more, taking gap years. We get a lot of people that have gone to community college that enter our program. So, for those of you, that are in community college, don't just as long as you do well in that part of your education, that will bode well for you. So don't think just because you're going to a community college school that's some kind of blemish on your record or anything. Here's a overview of the timeline of the admission cycle. We just started sending out invitations to complete our secondary about 3 weeks ago. We'll start interviewing in late August, at the end of this month, or early September, and we'll interview all the way through next February, maybe into March. We're on rolling admissions. We start accepting people into the program on October 15th, and we'll be accepting people all the way through like mid-July. So it's a very busy period. You want to make sure that you get your application materials set early on and apply early if you can. But everyone who submits an application within the posted deadlines gets a full review and are considered for interviews. So don't worry if you do apply closer to the deadline. That doesn't necessarily hurt you at all. So application eligibility, we don't require any specific coursework. We leave it up to you to demonstrate your foundation in the sciences through your coursework in the MCAT test. We do require that you take the MCAT, and that's part of the application eligibility. And we require that your MCAT score be 506 or above to receive an invitation to complete our secondary application. You can submit either a committee letter for your letter of recommendation, or individual letters. If you can choose one or the other. If you choose the individual letters, we ask that you not send any more than three individual letters. They can be from anyone of your choosing. We don't specify. Typically, people will send like 2 letters from science professors and one kind of personal endorsement type of letter. We
Mr.
recommend,
Richards, can you answer
yes.
this question? What if they send 5? What do you do?
We just leave it up to our reviewers to decide which 3 letters they'll use in the evaluation, and we'll just leave it at that because we get so many people that do send over 3, but everyone still gets a full holistic evaluation, but we can't take requests for like specific letters or anything like that. But yeah, the reviewer will just probably just read the first 3 letters and move on with the evaluation. We recommend Spanish and statistics, but they're not evaluated in your application materials. Like I mentioned, our LA General Hospital is 75% Spanish speaking. So if you can come in with any Spanish speaking skills at all, even at the most rudimentary level, that will be a blessing for someone, and it'll kind of give you, kind of a leg up when you enter the program as well. But we don't evaluate for that in your application. And this is an overview of the process. We have application review, interview selection. We have traditional interviews. So you'll interview with 1 student and 1 faculty member. Each interview is about 30 to 40 minutes long. And it's at that point, the initial screeners have already determined that they feel confident that you can get through the MD curriculum. So it's just a get to know you type of interview. So we try to make it as less stressful as we can for folks. We understand that folks are nervous coming in, but at least at the beginning of the cycle, by the end of the cycle, people are coming in there and they've already got acceptances and they're pretty emboldened. But we recognize that people might have a little bit of nerves, but it's really just a get to know you interview and an opportunity for you to ask questions of our faculty and our student. Interviews typically last about 30 to 40 minutes, and you receive a decision in about 4 to 6 weeks after the interview. And all of our interviews are virtual, rolling admissions, as I said before. So these are some of the things that we look for in applicants in your written material and in the interview. And if you go to the WMC website, you can find these with full descriptions of each. But you'll notice service orientation is at the top of the list. That's a big thing for us. We like people that are have experience, in community engagement, hopefully some clinical experience. But we really look for people that just have that strong desire to be of service and have prepared themselves to be of service to people in the health professions. And our reviewers look for how you talk about that in your application materials and in your responses in the interview as well. Empathy and compassion, cultural awareness, cultural humility. These are really big things in a situation where you're in a hospital with people who can't afford healthcare. So we look for people that want to come and be a part of providing healthcare to those folks in medical school. So that's something to think about as you craft your narrative of your application materials. So these are 4 things that every medical student we accept has. They have a strong intrinsic motivation. They're not just doing it to satisfy, their family members or anything like that, which it's nothing wrong with that. But they are doing it for them. It's like something they feel drawn to, like they feel like they have a calling for, and that they want to be a part of. And they can express that really well in their written materials and the way they talk about themselves and their interests and their values. They all have meaningful extracurriculars. It looks like the things they've chosen to do to prepare for medical school are things they would probably be doing to some degree, even if they weren't going to medical school. They demonstrate a commitment to whatever their community of interest is. Even people that don't necessarily have like a one community of interest. Some people have to experiment a little bit to find their niche and find their what their community is, and that's okay too. But those are meaningful encounters, and they write about them in a way that demonstrates the impact on their growth and development that these experiences have given them. When they write about their experiences, they're really talking in the language of these competencies that you saw on the other page, and talking about their development of these competencies to the reviewer. They can articulate their interests and values really well. When you medical school reviewers, you're not just a number. I know it seems that way because there's so few spots in terms of how many medical students apply for medical school, but they are really looking to see who you are as a person, what's making you tick, what your interests are, your values, how you've prepared, what kind of like experiential milestones you've covered, you've reached, things like that. They really want to get a sense of who you are and what makes you tick. So don't just think, metrics like the numbers. Those are easy things like, getting a certain number of hours of clinical volunteer or paid experience, a certain number of community engagement hours, a certain number of research hours. Those are all great things, but it's really, what has those things done to you? How have they helped you? And, how have you contributed while doing those things? Those are, the way you talk about those things is very important, I think. And I just stress that because I think a lot of people that aren't successful, sometimes I read their materials and you can tell like they didn't really give that much thought to like how they presented those when they talked about those experiences. So just to let you know. And if you want to scan this code here, I'll put a link in the chat in just a moment. But it goes to a link tree. We don't track you or anything like that, but it goes to a link tree with a number of different links to various components of our program, our curriculum program, our catalog. Office of Student Engagement has a link there. There's also a link for our primary care program and other things there you might find of interest. The AAMC link and my email address is there as well. So I'll just close with that and open it up for questions. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right. I could start off the Q&A by asking you the first question that we have.
Sure.
Okay. The first one, the person is saying, I'm graduating a year early and applying straight to med school, which means I realistically only have my first 2 years of college to talk about my primary application. Will admission officers take this into account and give some grace, or will I be held to the same standard as everyone else applying?
Well, I mean, everyone is going to be, they don't compare applicants to other applicants. So they're just going to look at your experience and the way you talk about your experience and just, make any decisions about interviews just based on your experience. Like I said, like, your development of those competencies, your academic background, and they're going to use those things to determine whether or not you would be a good fit for our program. And and they'll just evaluate you on your own merit.
I have a question, Mr. Richards. Can you just talk about the GPA? And because you're getting a lot of questions, people. So let's say you show up your first semester and you get all Fs.
Mhm.
Okay. But then if you continue and you get all A's, how does that looked upon versus someone who, I don't know. So can you talk a little bit about GPA? Because everybody's just so stuck on these like numbers
Right.
and talk about, I mean, obviously, like I would just tell you this is just like Mr. Richards or Dr. Arias haven't paid me, but actually, USC is like one of the only schools that says if you have below a 5.506 MCAT, we're not gonna like, you know, um, uh, you're not gonna complete a secondary. So, like, that's awesome because a lot of schools don't have that number on there. So the 506 is like set in stone. Can you just address that?
Yeah.
And then also just talk about GPA and how someone who gets all Fs and then your first quarter of college and then get all A's going forward, your GPA is going to be a little bit lower, but it's going to
Right.
improve and you're going to, and hopefully you could explain that, but can you just talk about
Definitely.
that a little bit?
Definitely. Yeah. They don't expect people to be perfect, pristine, have perfect, pristine academic records, right? They're not really looking for perfection in applicants. Matter of fact, most people that apply, have some blemish, usually at the beginning of their undergraduate years on their academic record. But they do want to see an upward trend in your grades, and it just indicates to reviewers that you've gotten a handle on how to do this thing, how to learn, how to ask for help, how to complete a course successfully. They just want to feel confident that you have gotten to that point where you can manage that, because basically, coming to medical school, like from that point on, you're going to be a lifelong learner whether you like it or not, right? You're going to be a professional learner as a doctor, as a resident, as a medical school, student. So you need to get a handle on that, and like in these formative years, like community college or undergraduate span of time, that's one of the things you really ought to be working on, is this really nailing down your ability to get through these courses and successfully complete them, with good grades, So yeah, as long as they see an upward trend, that isn't necessarily a deal breaker. That and if you have a decent MCAT score, because they're just going to look at it and say, can this person, with our academic support that we can supply this person, can they get through our curriculum? That's really all they want to know, about the grades. And then after that, like I said, the majority of the evaluation is spent mulling over, your authenticity, like who you are. Does the reviewer feel like, they're getting an accurate or getting an authentic portrayal of who you are, in your materials. So that's kind of how the GPA is looked at. Your MCAT, we just instituted this 506 policy not too long ago, because we've kind of just noticed over the years that our lowest MCAT coming in would be somewhere around 505, 506. And so, it's like, let's just make it easy for people to kind of know, where they're at without, making them apply to our program, if they're not quite ready. 506 is, I think the national average, I'm not sure what it is. It's somewhere around 510 or something like that. So, 506 I think our highest MCAT of this incoming class is like 523 or something like that. So, that's a pretty big range of folks. So, yeah, that's how that came about. But yeah, you have to demonstrate an upward trend, to kind of assuage any fears of your ability to get through our curriculum.
Yeah, and then the other question, and this is my favorite one, is there cutoff for the GPA grades, and what is the range and average and mean and all the other?
Right, right. Yeah, our median GPA is typically around 3.8. I think this incoming class that we're sitting just this week, I think there's a 3.9 was the median. But the lowest is typically between 3.0 and 4.0. That's typically the range year after year.
People want to know, do you guys offer merit scholarships or need-based scholarships?
We do. Like I mentioned, we offer about 30 to 35 uh, first, 1 and 2 year tuition scholarships, and there'll be a couple of people that will receive 4-year tuition scholarships, but the majority of the scholarships will be 1 and 2 year tuition scholarships. Then once you matriculate into the program, you'll have opportunities to apply for funding through our donor network as well.
Yeah, and the current Dr. Arias actually basically has left her entire state for scholarships for students. So
yeah, yeah. Yeah, very generous of her. She's always given a lot in that regard to students at our school. Yeah. Are you going to have our new dean, Dr. Fung, on this
he's actually
program?
spoke. He
Okay.
spoke, and he's actually coming back in the fall as well.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, he's great. He's just starting for us. He's kind of been Dr. Arias and him have been kind of co-leading this past year, and Dr. Arias is going to step aside in a couple of months here, and Dr. Fung will take over.
Yeah, I've actually told Dr. Fung that he has some very big shoes to fill. So
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Dr. Arias is, yeah, she's a legend around Keck, around these parts.
Another question we have, they're asking about clinical experiences. I think you answered a little bit about like the effectiveness being like something that's meaningful to you, but in terms of like our threshold for volunteering clinical hours and shadowing, what would you say that would be for USC Keck?
I think, somewhere around, it varies from applicant to applicant. I think on the MSAR, we say something like 40 or 50 hours of some type of clinical experience, combination there of clinical experience and community engagement type experience. But but they don't, I mean, your application won't be like discarded if it's less than that. Everyone will still that applies still will receive a holistic evaluation. But I think the average is, I mean, it varies widely. You'll have some people that will be accepted into our program. They might have, 40, 50 hours of various experiences, clinical and volunteer experiences. Some people will have hundreds, maybe even thousands of hours. So, and the same goes for research as well. I've seen people come into our program with, 20, 30 hours of research, some with thousands of hours. So it just varies and depends on your the means, because it's kind of hard to get clinical experience these days, and they recognize that. But so that's where, writing about those experiences and really fleshing out, the impact on those experiences on your growth and development become very important. You know, especially if you have, like limited time in those, in in those experiences, because another part of that reviewers are looking for is, has this person given themselves enough opportunities to even be able to foreclose on a career in medicine? Have they done enough, seen enough to know, like, this is it, this is for me. I've seen.
for the next 40 years.
Yeah, for the next, really, for the rest of my life, is this something that I want to dedicate my life to, And they want to see that you've given yourself enough opportunity to claim that, because that's a pretty big, that's a pretty big, piece of the elephant to chew on. So, yeah, that's kind of how they look at that.
Yeah, and just going back to the grades, we're still getting questions about the grades, and it's like, people are saying, well, I've had like bad grades. You can't change the past. You could only change the future. And so find out why you did bad. Obviously, if you had illness, family issues, economics, you can't, talk about those. But also as somebody who examines their life, why did you get bad grades? Maybe you were working too much or going to too many fraternity parties. Like those are all like part of growing up and assessing your life and making changes on that. So I think a lot of you guys are just worried about things that you cannot change, and the things that you can change, find out why you did that and then improve on that. Maybe you need better learning skills. Maybe you need to learn how to study better. Maybe there's a whole science of like learning, and the internet's a really great tool for it. Like, something you've done that didn't work, like try something else. Like these things are not easy. You're not born, you know, having all these things, you learn it. And so figuring out how you do that, that's, I think, is really important.
Definitely very important. And another thing I'll say too about this whole preparation journey is really you ought to be looking at it as if, this is like setting the foundation, that you're going to draw on for the rest of your life. It's not just a matter of checking off the boxes. This is, you are investing in your own future in doing these things, like doing, community engagement, doing research, keeping up, good grades. These are things that are gonna build your character, and I think if you look at this whole process as a tool, like it's an opportunity for you to develop as, as a human being, and if you look at it as a tool for your own personal growth, I think the things will be much easier and you will, really get something out of it, because the thing is like, not everybody's gonna, you might, get so far in your preparation, realize, maybe being a doctor isn't for me. Maybe I want to go into, like bioengineering or something, or, or whatever, so you kind of want this to be an exploratory time, a time that you are figuring out like who you are, who you want to be, and how you want to go about that, So don't just look at it as you're just checking off the boxes. That would be my advice.
And then another question, just to add on that, like a little bit more to expand. When in terms of students who already finished school and their GPA set in stone, what sort of resources or advice would you give for like improving academic achievement or something like make up for it? Like, what are some resources you would provide?
Yeah, yeah. Well, a lot of people do exactly, they go back to school, they do some type of educational enrichment, they take a post-bacc or something like that. Um, those are all good things. Like, especially like if your grades, like if you finished, your undergraduate time and you still feel like you never got a handle on it and you're not feeling confident in your ability to to get through programs, then yeah, you need to work on that by figuring out like where maybe some of your more challenging, where you're challenged at academically, and get help. Dr. Arias, she talks about, I've heard her talk to younger folks like in high school, and she's would tell them like, practice asking for help. She said, that's what I'm going to challenge you to do every day. Make up something and go ask somebody to help you with something. You need to get used to doing that. That shouldn't be a thing. You should just be able to do that without feeling weird or anything, So yeah, you need to figure out where you're challenged at, and just address it head on, and and try to improve, that's what it's all about. Continuous improvement is one of the competencies.
Right. Okay, thank you. Another question we have is asking about like the secondary application. They mentioned like it's different from secondaries they've seen before. They want to know more about how those responses help your team gain deeper insight about these applicants.
Yeah, it's funny, those questions, our students volunteer those questions to us. Some of the questions for you, those of you who haven't seen it, one of the questions is, what's the most fun you've had lately? Another is, name 3 things that you don't care about at all. I think another one is like, if you had abundant wealth, how would you allocate your charitable contributions? And the one I like is, if you had to give yourself a nickname, what would that be? So it's just an opportunity for people to tell a little bit more about themselves, and kind of just further humanize their application materials. That's kind of how we look at it. There's no like no like psychological like rubric attached to that at all. It's just an opportunity for you to talk about yourself, show a little bit of your lighter side within reason, don't go crazy, on it, on being yourself. Just be that, but that much, but just keep it within reason. But that's just something for you to have fun with. Oh, another one. Name something that you didn't get that you felt that you deserved? Now that one, people can go dark on that one. So be mindful of that. And that is very telling. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you for that one. Another question we have.
Can I actually ask this one? This is going on. So somebody wants to know the MCAT. They took the MCAT the first time and they didn't do that well, but
Mhm.
the second time they scored 522, which is a 490 looked down upon or the 520. I mean, you'll see all the grades, right? All the MCAT
Right.
scores.
Yeah, they'll just look at all of the scores and just kind of take it for what it's worth. Like, yeah, this person, maybe they had a bad day that when they first took the MCAT, maybe they hadn't prepared, in the way that they could have, and they went back and prepared, and they took it and did very well on it. That definitely looks good. The only kind of thing that raises concerns is if like somebody takes multiple MCATs. You should strive to only take one MCAT. If your MCAT is somewhere around the national average, that's a good MCAT score. If you keep taking it, and most people, that person's very fortunate, or very few people score, that much higher than their original MCAT. So, some people even score less. So you don't want to keep taking it. Some people will be taking their MCATs like just repeatedly 3, 4, 5 times, and it doesn't vary by more than a couple of points. And that just looks like, you're just forcing it. You're not really, stepping back, figuring out a plan, getting help, and addressing it in the proper way. So you definitely don't want to just keep taking it. And if you got a good score, that's around the national average, you don't want to appear to be trying to be a perfectionist either. There are people with 525 MCATs and 4.0s that never get an interview, because the evaluation isn't just a metric thing. So keep that in mind. They're not looking for perfect academic backgrounds necessarily. So
And then one other question is, do you separate the undergraduate GPA from somebody who gets a master's?
yeah, it's all visible, in the way it's presented. It's all visible right there. They can see each academic program, each year of that program, and then cumulatively they can see the GPAs, and they can see it broken down by, like the science GPA, or just cumulative all over GPA. So, they can see it every sliced and diced every which way. And like I said, they're basically just they're just looking at it like, with this person's academic background and our resources, can they get through our program? That's the long and short of it right there.
Another question we have, they're asking about what advice would you give to applicants who are trying to go straight through to medical school? And what are some common pitfalls you see in those applicants?
Yeah, I think one, yeah, I'm not sure if there's any, like, I mean, we get a quite a, most of the people do come straight out of their undergraduate program into our program. So and they're great applicants. I think that doesn't necessarily, like coming straight into the program doesn't necessarily correlate to, like, you know, like being deficient in some way or anything. I think what I think what the people that aren't successful, for the most part, I mean, there are thousands of people who make great medical students and great physicians that we can't interview everybody. We get thousands of applications for 120 spots. So there's that. There's that chunk of people that are great applicants that we just, we don't have the capacity to interview and accept. And then there's, that group of people who, you know sometimes I think a lot of times the writing isn't good. Like, especially if a person doesn't get an interview, it's possible that, maybe they didn't create like a compelling narrative that talked about, or hit upon those things that we talked about earlier, those competencies, and showing their growth and development. And the competencies, maybe they weren't clear about, maybe they just didn't make a really compelling impression about who they are and why they should be admitted into medical school, you know. But I think a lot of times it's just the writing part. I think that is a big thing. I think otherwise great candidates kind of sell themselves short by not really articulating, who they are. Because I think a lot of people think they're going to win the day with the metrics, and so they kind of get lazy on that part, that self-discovery kind of reflective part of that, writing, the personal statement and about your experiences. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's where you really should be spending time on.
Thank you for that. Another question we have for context, this student is a Canadian student and they're curious about how Keck evaluates international students, especially Canadians, and what are specific challenges at admissions or tips that you would recommend?
Yeah, we accept international students are eligible to apply. We had a Canadian student that came in a couple of years ago, but the vast majority of our applicant pool are California natives, U.S. citizen California natives. So I think it's just a kind of a numbers thing as far as like international students getting into our program. We're a private program. We can accept anyone we choose. We don't have any constraints in that regard. But
People
yeah,
don't want to leave California.
right.
Just say sorry.
Right. But yeah,
California love.
and I would say like for international students, like any kind of I don't know, yes, it's hard to say because like I said, it's not we don't have a state of residence preference or anything like that. So you just have to do the same things that the other applicants do. You have to demonstrate these competencies and have decent grades, good MCAT, and all of those same things. It probably wouldn't hurt to have some kind of affiliation with underserved populations, as far as healthcare goes, like in your volunteer experience, because that's like I said, that's a big thing that we look for in applicants. So having that kind of experience, even if you're out of the country or in a different country, would definitely parallel the types of experience that we're looking for in our applicants.
Another question we have, again to the secondary prompts, for the questions asking about anything else to add, is this like an opportunity for them to talk about what they want to go to, why they want to go to Keck, their background, or about their gap year, etc.
Yeah, all of the above. Yeah, people use that for anything. Like some people that might touch upon like a blemish on their record or something like that, or talk about some encounter they've had with with a Keck program. Some people we get a lot of people that have volunteered at LA General Medical Center or one of our affiliated hospitals, or people that know medical students, or in some way have had experience with our programs in some ways, have attended, events, sponsored by our student interest groups, anything like that. People might add that just to kind of, fill in a little bit more about themselves. But you shouldn't feel obligated to, if you don't have anything else to add, don't add anything. You definitely don't want to just start rambling or touting bullet points or anything like that there.
Thank you. Another question we have for USC undergrad or master students, are they evaluated any differently? Maybe a little heavier, a little lighter? Is there no separate benefit?
No, everybody's evaluated on the merits. We typically actually are, up until this last class, we typically accept more UCLA students than any other undergraduates in the country, because UCLA puts out more pre-meds than any school in the country. So there's enough pre-meds from UCLA each year to fill up every school in California. So
So you guys saying you guys don't have love for UCLA students?
oh no, we love, yeah, they're our
That's
favorites.
what I'm saying. You have love for them.
Definitely, we definitely do. But you should see like on interview day, like when they talk, when they have the little welcome session with the dean, everybody goes around and says what school they're, their undergraduate school, and the Bruins, they always feel a little hesitant. It's like they really think like we're gonna, hold it against them that they're Bruins and from an inferior football school. We wouldn't do that. But yeah.
Yeah, again, we're getting a lot of questions. People saying, should I do EMT? Should I do phlebotomy? Should I do X, Y, Z? Do you look for one, like what's the secret to like the clinical experience that you want them to have? Absolutely.
Yeah, there's no certain specialty or anything. It's just the environment. Any experience that you can get where you're around other medical professionals and patients, that's really all we're kind of looking for. Like I said, we need to know that you've seen the medical profession and that you can make an informed decision about becoming a physician. But as far as particular specialties, we do get a lot of people that have been EMTs, or we get a couple of nurses, seems like each cycle that come into the program. But we don't, reviewers, medical school reviewers, I think in general, don't really care what your undergraduate major was, as long as you have taken those science courses that demonstrate your foundation in the sciences. It's really, I think you should be looking for things that interest you. Do, even in the clinical experiences, go for things that you have a genuine interest in, because you're going to be able to talk about those things in a more compelling way than if you just, like I said, trying to fill in the boxes, or the buckets of experience. So look at it from the inside out. Follow your experience, your interest, and gain experience and your competency through that.
Yeah, and also know like experiences are very different. Like being an EMT is very different than being a medical assistant. Um,
Yeah.
you need to like being on an ambulance is very different than being in a clinic. So you got to be able to follow those things that interest you, not what you think somebody would want to hear.
Yeah, because reviewers aren't looking at it like, well, they've got a lot of experience and doing, in this kind of clinical setting, it'll be easier to teach them or something like that. You're coming into medical school as a from zero. So it's not like that experience is going to put you ahead of anybody necessarily. I mean, you will have certain experiences probably, like if you spend a lot of time in a certain specialty or something than other, of your colleague medical students. But that's not a factor in the evaluation, and certainly not a factor in the way you're going to be trained once you get into medical school.
Thank you. Another question we have is, can you expand on how competitive the MD MBA track is?
Um, I don't have any numbers on that, but I think they get about 10 or so applicants of our students that apply to that each year. And they have to apply and meet the requirements of the MBA program to get in. But I don't know what like what the success rate is of that, unfortunately. Um, but I would think I would think it's I really couldn't say exactly. I need to find that out actually. I've never heard of anybody not getting into that program, but once people like being in admissions, once people kind of get in their third year, I kind of start losing touch with them because I'm dealing with mostly applicants and our first year students, but but I'll I don't think it's, I mean, there are standards you have to meet to get into the program. You have to be in academic good standing at Keck through our medical MD program, first of all, and you have to pass whatever standards they have. But I don't think it's insurmountable, what you have to go through.
So basically they go after their third year and it's in person for the business school, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they take a leave of absence. They apply to the program, they take a leave of absence, and they sandwich that year of the MBA or the MPH in between years 3 and 4 of the MD curriculum. And so they'll go do that, the MBA, and then they come back and complete year 4 of the medical school curriculum and then graduate after 5 years. And
Thank
from what I've heard from people that do that, our MPA, I think the MPH is a little more popular among our students than the MBA. But what I've heard is like, that kind, once they go to that program, to either of those programs, that's just like regular school. I mean, by their theory in medical school, they're clicking on all cylinders, and that's just, just another something they don't, I don't think they find it overwhelming to complete those programs.
Thank you. Another question we have is how will the possible changes in federal grant funding affect the MD PhD program at Keck?
Yeah, yeah, it's hard to say at this point. I mean, it's already a pretty competitive program. We get about 250 applications each year for the MD PhD program, and we accept about 4 students, 4 to I think 5 this last time. So I think I don't see that changing. So it's already a pretty tight kind of competitive uh, uh, program as it is. But I'll just mention another little bit about that program. Like I said, it's in conjunction with California Institute of Technology. So any of the PhDs that they offer or any of the Keck PhDs are open to students that apply to that program. And they provide a $45,000 a year stipend while you're doing that degree program. And the way it works is you do your first 2 years of the MD curriculum, and after each of those first 2 years, you do lab rotations. And after your second year of lab rotations, you apply to which lab you want to do your research in. You go away and you do your research. You go away. I mean, Caltech is about a half hour from our campus, but you do your research 3 to 7 years, depending on what your research is, and then you come back and complete years 3 and 4 of the med school curriculum. And it's all the tuition is paid, and you get a stipend for it.
Thank you. And then kind of also a little bit off of that, they're asking about is there a MD-JD partnership between Gold and Keck at USC?
Is there? I didn't catch all of that. I'm sorry.
They're asking,
MDJD.
yeah.
Oh, no, there isn't. There isn't. Unfortunately, yeah, that would be nice if there was, but there isn't. But we have had people who had already earned their JDs come into our program, our MD program, but we don't have a dual degree program.
And are they the most popular kid?
Just
Just kidding. Just kidding.
That's
Just kidding.
funny.
Just kidding.
Another question we have is when it comes to shadowing experience, what do medical schools look for from it?
Yeah, they just look shadowing, you're not really doing a lot, much patient interaction or anything, but they're just, like I said, just looking to see that you've surveyed the field and you can make an informed decision, as to whether it's the right field for you, and your shadowing experience and other experiences. And the way you talk, like I said, the way you talk about its impact on you, that's what they're really looking for. I mean, shadowing, they know you're not doing any, you're just following along and looking. And they just want to hear about your experience, how that benefited you, what did you think about that? How did that help you decide foreclose on a career in medicine?
Another question we have, more about courses and do MCATs expire in terms of like applications for students going into USC?
Yeah, the MCAT, the valid MCAT date range is 3 years from the matriculation date. So people that are applying this year to enter the program in August of 2026, their oldest MCAT has to be can't be any older than January 1st of 2023. And that just rolls over each year. So 3 years from the point of the time that they enter the program, that's the valid range.
And how about courses as well? Do those expire?
Courses, no, that does not expire.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
So
Another
one
question.
student here,
Yep.
this is actually a pretty interesting question. Um, this student wants to know, should they do clinical experience or research experience, and which one is the most important
Yeah.
for?
Yeah, I think you should always try to get as much clinical experience as you can. Just for your own, like I said, just for your own foreclosure on this thing, right? You don't want to just go to medical school with, not really understanding what the profession is like. So, but I would say clinical experience just on the face of it is a little bit more important in that regard. Because like I said, I've seen people with that come into our program with minimal research hours, 20, 30 hours of research, and I've seen people have 30, 3,000, 4,000 hours of research. So and that's just a preference of interest for the applicant, whatever, that person that has thousands of hours of research, they love research. uh, but but they also, I guarantee you, didn't they had ample, clinical experience in community engagement as well. So, so yeah, we are always looking to see that people have, some, some level of uh, clinical experience or community engagement and community engagement experiences. And that's kind of like the meat of what we're kind of looking for.
It's kind of saying like you want to put a football team or basketball team together. Do you just want to have five people that are LeBron James, or do you want them to have like one LeBron James, one Curry, And so I think it's kind of like saying, should I do research or clinical medicine? I don't know. Do you want to be, Steph Curry or, or LeBron James? I mean, it's kind of like, or do you want, or football, do y'all want to be, what's that quarterback from Chiefs?
Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes, or do you want to, so you got to have it all. Like you gotta, like you putting like these schools put together teams, and they all don't want everybody to be the same because you know if you have all Steph Currys, you can't catch the rebound. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like
Yeah, and I think a lot of people think that too, like, we're looking like you have to fit this certain mold, but actually it's almost the opposite. Like I think just being your authentic self in your application materials and and introducing yourself like that, that's what's going to make you stand out, not just trying to be, figure out what, everybody else is and trying to be like that. That's going to make you look like everybody else. So,
and then we also had the dean of admission from UCI School of Medicine did a talk on why research matters, and it's a really great workshop that you should go watch. I put the link on there, and he basically goes over all the like why research is important, what you get to do in research, what you get to do as a physician, why, and it's important, even though you're never going to do research in your career, why that's an important thing.
Okay. Another question we have is a student who has transferred from one university to another for like their personal reasons, not related to anything about academics. How might that be viewed about for medical school admissions committees?
nothing wrong with that. We see a lot of people that go to multiple schools. This, as long as you do well, that's really what they're looking at. It's going to be looking at your performance overall for the most part.
Okay. And then another question we have is for students worried about the future of medicine, medical school applications, and financial insecurity, what insights could you offer on navigating a tumultuous political, economical, and social state while hoping to reach medical school?
Yeah, I would say, make as many connections with people in the health professions as you can. When you're volunteering, like if you volunteer in places where there are medical students, you want to try to, network with them as much as you can, but getting to, if you can find mentorship in the health professions from professionals that, in a field of your interest, that is invaluable, and, you just, you want to build your own, your social network. You want a strong network of people that are, have similar pursuits and interests as you, and, people that you can lean on and kind of help you through these times. Because yeah, it is, this is a, we're in a state of flux right now. It's hard to kind of know how things are going to look in, another few years. So you want to, you really want to, that's another reason why you should really just home in on like what's important for you, improve yourself, follow your interest, just kind of just really dig into like what your motivations are, not, so so that you can tell other people in your application, so for yourself like who you are and why you're doing this, why your motivation, like why am I doing this, ought to be guiding everything that you do in preparation for medical school. And I've even heard other medical students say this: you shouldn't do anything for medical school that you aren't genuinely interested in. Like those competencies, they're not attached to particular specialties or areas of interest. Whatever interest you have, you can, you can gain experience that are gonna, and you're gonna, develop those competencies, whether it's like, helping an elderly person in your family, whether it's volunteering, tutoring kids, no matter what it is, any interaction you have with an organization or a person is going to entail you utilizing those competencies and developing those skills. And those skills are going to be the foundation that you're going to draw on for the rest of your life. So I think just treat it as such. Don't get too hung up on on the way things might go, politically in the future. You just got to keep your head down and just, figure out what the best thing for you to be doing right now is, and just keep doing that.
Thank you. Another question we have is, how could a non-traditional pre-med applicant best communicate the value of their unique background?
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's kind of a, that's just about your personal expression, the way you talk about yourself. Your personal statement is basically an introduction, and like I said, you want to, what you're trying to convey is, this is why I want to be a doctor. These are some experiences that I've had that have made me foreclose on this career in medicine, and these are some things that I've done to help prepare me, to put me in a position so that I can be of service to people in the health profession. And these are my interests and values. So, you need to create a narrative that tells that story, and I can't tell you how to do that, but that's your aim, and it's going to take time to do that. You might not even know all of the answers to those right now, and that's what this preparation process is. Figuring that out, for yourself. I would also say, like, when you do certain volunteer experiences and just in general, keep a little journal and just, reflect, write little reflections on your experiences, because it might be 2-3 years before you actually apply to medical school, and you don't want to forget things that, that were pivotal or that were important to you now, that you can use, in the future when you're applying to medical school, graduate school, or whatever. And another thing about those competencies, employers look for that too, just in regular jobs. I was in talent development, and I used to do leadership development and classes and workforce development classes, and those are the same competencies we want people to have as well. So they're not like some exclusive little medical thing. I mean, these are just life things that you need to be trying to develop. And telling your story, yeah, that's a personal thing, but those are the kind of roughly the 4 or 5 things that you want to kind of think of, and in introducing yourself on paper. And, you go through this preparation process, over the course of a couple of years, right? And, by the time you do get, invited to interview in medical school, you're not going to need any bullet points or to memorize, your accomplishments or any of that. You're going to just be able to talk about yourself openly and freely, like a normal human being, because, you put the work in, So, um, that's yeah, and work with the pre-health advisor, people that know you to help you flush out, those kinds of intimate details about your background that you want to convey, in the right way in your presentation of your materials.
Thank you. Another question we have is, what is one thing you wish more applicants knew about Keck before applying?
That I think though, if I had to limit it to one thing, is that Keck is not some monolithic kind of uppity institution. It's a very collaborative environment. Faculty actually care about students and love interacting with students at our school. And I think most medical schools, I would think, but it's a very active, dynamic environment. We have people like I mentioned in that one slide, about 35% of our class have been out of school for 2 years or more. They bring a lot of different experiences. Some of them, are liberal arts majors in their undergraduate school, and, engineers, people have, started their own nonprofit. I mean, this is just like all of these amazing people, young people, that are populating our class, man. It's very dynamic, very welcoming. It's not stuffy at all. There is something for everybody at Keck, and I think it's a great place to go to school.
Thank you. Another question we have in the chat is for what is Keck doing to offset physician burnout and alleviate with the exorbitant financial burden of seeking a medical degree?
Yeah, I mentioned our wellness program. Our wellness program, as it is now, has been in effect for the past 7, 8, 9 years or so. When I first started in admissions about 12 years ago, they were just starting the wellness program. But now, by the time the pandemic hit, it was they had brought it to full fruition, and it was right on time. But that their main thing is physician resilience. So, that their whole curriculum that's embedded into the MD curriculum, it focuses on resilience, and they provide all manner of resources for our students. They have a group peer-to-peer kind of counseling. We have it's ran by two clinical psychologists, and they bring in professionals from various medical specialties. Patients from different patient populations come in and talk about their experiences, and try to share with people, how to navigate, the working, day-to-day working environment of a professional, healthcare professional. So yeah, they have a really big interest in helping students, manage themselves so that they don't burn themselves out. And one of the peculiar things about medical schools, like you think, and it's a lot, right? Medical school there's a lot to it. But I've heard people say like their first year was definitely not as stressful as they thought it would be. By the time you get to your clerkship years, there's going to be more demands on your time because you're going to go through these clinical rotations that require you to be, available for certain periods of time and things like that. But there's a lot of leeway in the way you put your schedule together, in medical school, and they do a lot to help you so that you don't burn out. And one of the things that you should learn now is, managing your time, and building in time for things that you love doing, making that part of your schedule. But yeah, you'll see if you look at that link tree, and I'll put I'll put that in the chat there again, just so you have it. There's a link to our wellness unit there. And you can see their whole portfolio of services there. There's also a link to the academic support unit there, and you can see their whole portfolio of services. It's a lot. It's too much for me to talk about in one sitting, but you go there and they have a lot there that you would find interesting. And as far as the financial situation, yeah, like I mentioned, our class size is 120. We give out about 30 to 35 1 and 2 year scholarships, 2 or 3 full tuition scholarships to members of our incoming class. Keck School of Medicine has a large donor network. Once you matriculate into the program, throughout your 4 years of medical school, you'll have opportunities to apply for other scholarship funding to help offset the cost of tuition. Most of the tuition or scholarship funds that our students receive come from our donor network throughout their 4 years of school.
Thank you. Another question we have is, how is research integrated in the MD curriculum for students, and are MD students allowed to pursue their own research with the faculty mentor?
Definitely. Yeah, we have a a pretty robust research mentor database that our students can use to help define, their research niche. All students are required to complete a scholarly project over the span of their 4 years. And it can be on any topic of their choosing. It can be public policy related. It can be, hard bench science related. It's up to them. But most students that I talk to, they make introductions with physicians and researchers just by emailing them, calling them, or going to their office and talking to them, asking can they shadow them, interview them, things like that. They're, faculty are very accessible there at the Keck School of Medicine.
I would just say any medical school that you go to, the world is your oyster. Any physician in the network is available to you. So, that should not be a worry.
Definitely. I totally agree. It's medical students are the crown jewel of the school. So yeah, you have access. That's what the big thing that's offered to you as a student.
So you guys are asking a lot of questions on shadowing and clinical experience, and we did like a 2-hour session about that. We're gonna do another one in the fall, but you want to go and watch that video, and that has a lot of information. There's a lot of things that you could do for clinical experience with just a 4-hour CPR. And so we talked about that, and there's a lot of things you could do. So watch that video. Um, this is a question somebody wants to have is they took the MCAT and they did an okay score, and then took it the second time and they did much worse. What should they do now?
Yeah, I think you should talk to a pre-health advisor. If you're in an undergraduate program, you should work with your pre-health advisor to kind of figure out, how you should approach that. Because it's not just your MCAT score in isolation. Your MCAT score by itself isn't going to make or break your application. It's your MCAT score in conjunction with your overall academic body of work, as well. So you need to talk to someone who can go over your body of work with you and make suggestions about, how you ought to approach that. Sometimes, you might think your MCAT score is bad because you wanted a certain score or something, but it might be good enough to get you into a medical school, but you need to talk to a professional, a pre-health advising professional to really help you to understand where you fall. Another thing that the AAMC offers on their website, I'm not exactly sure what section, but it's under data tables, and you can see like the GPA and MCAT of all of the last incoming class. Which schools, the ranges of MCAT scores, the combination of MCAT and GPA, like the percentage of applicants that matriculated with that, with those metrics and things like that. And you can kind of gauge, where you're at and all of that as well. But it's under AAMC. If you search on data tables,
I posted it.
Okay, good. Yeah, check that out. But definitely you want to work with the pre-health advising officer because I only know Keck, but they'll know the ins and outs of more universities. A lot of assuming many of you are Californians on this call, but a lot of out-of-state medical schools love California applicants, and they a lot of times offer funding for California applicants. So if you can, you definitely want to include out-of-state schools in your search or preparation when you choose which medical schools you want to apply to as well.
Somebody's very upset here that they're not a California resident and they want to be acknowledged. So sorry.
That's funny. Hey, Joe Bean, I've got time for maybe one more question, and then I'm gonna have to call it.
All right, I'll let Marco decide.
I think the last question here, how does USC view letters of interest, and when, in your opinion, is the appropriate time?
Yeah, we actually only accept letters of interest for people who have interviewed with us and been placed on the wait list. We instruct them that on April 30th, at the close of the cycle, they can send a brief note just letting us know that they're still interested in enrolling in our program and they still want to be considered for admission. And we ask them not to send like a big letter. Actually, if they can just in the body of the email briefly just tell us, I'm still interested in attending Keck, please consider me, like that. But just in general, we can't accept any extra materials from applicants. We just don't have the capacity for that.
Well, Mr. Richards, thank you very much again for coming, and thank you very much for your time and making yourself available on this, hot. It's actually like really hot up here in San Francisco. So
Oh, you're in San Francisco? I didn't.
yeah, I'm in Oakland, but
Oh,
yes.
really? Yeah, man. I was born and raised in San Francisco, man.
Really?
Yeah, a little jealous of you.
We're up here, man. Join us.
But
Join
thanks
us.
for inviting me again. I appreciate it. And I'm assuming, maybe next May we're going to do the San Antonio College thing again.
Awesome.
Yeah.
There's actually something else I'm doing next summer, so I'll let you know. And also, I'm gonna email her, but please say hi to Dr. Arias for me and tell her that we're not gonna let her retire. So we're gonna just keep her there and she can't leave.
Really? Well, I'll tell her. And thanks again for inviting me. And I appreciate all of the questions. And, the MedAdmit email addresses is there in the chat. If you have any questions, I can't provide personal advice, but if you have any questions about the program, our processes, practices, I'm happy to answer your email. So feel free. So thanks a lot, you all.
Thank you very much and have
Good
a
luck to
great
everybody.
afternoon.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Take care.